Hello everyone, welcome to Caroline's Craftery and welcome to part 3 of dyeing fibers, threads, wool, eyelash trim, all that stuff. Anyways, you can tell I've already been at it a little bit and I've got a big mess. So I thought I would just show you a few other things. Now I didn't have a nice orange dye. So I've used alcohol inks, shimmer mist, and distress inks for these. And love how they turned out. These were done with alcohol inks, so directly where I sprayed the ink, it's darker. But I'll show you because I'm working on some purple stuff. Now I've already done a bit because it's way too much to do on camera. So this is purple section so far. Same thing, alcohol ink, shimmer mist, and some distress inks. Lots and lots of videos about this out there. But this is the way I do it because I have a very limited space where I do this at. Now I am going to use some purple violet dye. And this is also the same dye I used to dye some of my other stuff. But it wasn't as purple. So I'm going to use it very intense color. I did try this Colorbox chalk ink pad and it did not work as good as the distress inks. It did work, but not as good. So let's start with something. I'm going to use my little container just to keep things defined in a small space. So I'm going to use wilted violet to start with, and I'm just going to put some on the bottom of my tray. Now I could just use like a pad thing or something, and I'm going to give it a little bit of water. And let's start off with something simple. I'm going to start off with some seam binding. Boy, how long did I cut this piece? Okay, hold on. Coming to the end. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to roll it up in a ball in my hand. And I'm going to spray some water on it. And it does help. The water with the distress ink works really good. And, you know, I think anybody that's been in this for any length of time has done some kind of dyeing with distress inks. But then again, not everybody has distress inks. Now I'm going to kind of clean up my whole container, and then I'm going to squish it together like this, a whole bunch. And I'm going to spray a bit more water in there because of the fact the distress inks work so good with water. And let's get some more on there. Purple is probably one of my most used colors because I love it. And now I'm going to kind of pick my whitest spot, put that down in the ink, and again I'm going to wipe it all up. Now you could add, like, if you had a re-inker, just putting a little bit in some water would work really good. So I'm trying to really squish, get that water going from place to place on this. Because you see I still got quite a bit of white there. Let's get that wet. I do find that the distress inks do give me my favorite colors, even though I love all the colors that I did. I love the way the purple comes out in this Distress ink. I love the color, especially of the seam binding. It gives me such a wonderful color. Now this does not have to all be the same color. I don't mind if it's a little bit variegated. That's okay. And that's looking pretty good. It's pale in other areas, but I don't mind that at all. I think this will pick up the color once it's mushed all up, because I'm going to, of course, dry it in a ball, so then it stays being a crinkled seam binding. So I'm going to leave it in a ball like that, and I'm going to set it on my tray. Now, the alcohol inks. Let's dye something with an alcohol ink. Let's go ahead and let's try this. Now, the one thing with doing this type of stuff with these is you have to work the thread more, and of course, the more you work it, then the more knotted up it could possibly be. So let's spray. I do find doing it this way, it's better to wet the stuff a little bit first. Doesn't have to be a lot. I'm going to try not to like rub it around. Now with the alcohol ink, it kind of absorbs in like fairly quickly. So let's put a few drops down on here. Now even though this is Wild Plum, and water and alcohol ink don't like get along tremendously, but it does work. Now this is going to be, it's kind of a purple pink, I guess you might say. I'm just going to try to squish it. So this is like a really bright purple pink. This I did with alcohol inks as well. But you can see it's going to be really dark in spots, but I think that's going to be lovely. Let's leave that in a little ball as well. When I do things like this, I do them in about 3 to 5 yard lengths, because then it's enough to do a journal, kind of enough to play with. Now let's go ahead and try this. Now because I'm dealing with all purples, I'm not too worried about cleaning out this. The only time I do is if I'm going to put ink on it. Now I don't want very much of this. Let's use maybe a half a cup, or a half a lid. Half a cup would be a bit much. And then let's add some water. Now, the other way I was doing it, I was doing like a half a lid to half a pint of water. So this is like half a lid to 2 lids. Let's just clean that off. Okay, let's put the lid back on there. Now let's do one of these. Now it absorbs it pretty quick, and it's also a lot darker than I would typically like. I would kind of like a brighter purple. Things that absorb water really easy. See how that, but it's going to lighten up a little bit, but that's also not the color, like it's a I'm not sure what I'm trying to say. Well, it's like a brown color, so. But even on this, it's fairly dark. Darker than I'd want. But let's dye a couple of these. Now these, you'll remember from when I was doing my other dyeing, these don't absorb really quickly. They do absorb at some point, but they take a while, especially when, like, if you wet your items first, then it is way easier. But these here, of course, they're not going to be quite as dark. They look dark now, but they will lighten up. So let's put those over on our thing. So I don't drip all over the place. I don't normally dye here on my desk. I have a little area over there that I do dyeing, and let's see what happens to this in here. See, that's going to be quite dark, darker than what I want. But you never know what it's going to be like until you do it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up. Perfect way to use this. Let's bring in some of my nice purple that I love. I'm going to get a re-inker of this so that I can use it. Or like he makes the other inks, like the distress inks, the spray inks, all that stuff too. So I think I will get something like that. So let's use this and let's see what happens when we add this in with it. I'm going to clean it all up, and now I can squish it together, try to now the shimmer mist reacts to water really well. So does the distress ink, then of course the fabric dye. The alcohol inks, not so much. I guess I could use rubbing alcohol if I had any, but it kind of stinks too. So now this is getting to be a little bit nicer, and I think I'll leave it at that and see what it looks like once it's dry. So now we got that. Now let's do something with the shimmer mist. We got kind of got these all, had them all nice and sorted. And so we've got this sparkly stuff, and let's give it a little bit of water. And also just a little hint that I do. I have some green seam binding. I have a big roll of it, and brown. And what I will do is I will just spray it with water and then crinkle it up, and I use that as crinkled seam binding. And this is quite purple, quite a dark purple. But I'm going to, and again, I don't want to be wiggling it, jiggling it, and carrying on, because I don't want it to get too messed up. Out of all the other stuff I did, I had none that got tangled up very badly. Okay, now just for the fun of it, we are going to add, and this is going to like make it like really dark in spots. Just adding it in dots. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll kind of squish it. We'll spread that around a little bit. Oh, that's looking nice. And then we'll pick up this little tiny bit. And this is giving a really nice variegated good thing I wore gloves. And it goes, some of it's like kind of white. It's got a little bit of a pink. It'll pick up stuff just off my gloves. To dark. That's actually very pretty. Anxious to see that dried. Okay, let's curl that up into a ball. Put it up on the tray. Okay, I've got some ribbon and some seam binding that I really want to do. So let's get that. And let's use some shaded lilac. No, it might not be very purple. We'll try it and see what it's like. Spray some water in there. And let's do this here ribbon, this organza ribbon. Again, I'll crunch it up in my hand. Spray some water. As I say, this is nothing new. There's thousands of videos out there doing this, but this is what I do in a small area. This stuff picks up the inks almost right away. Now that's a very nice pale. Very pale, which I like. Now, if I wanted, just going to touch it in spots. I just want to see what happens. Like, I know what it's going to do. I know it's going to make darker spots. But I'm anxious to see what it will turn out like. When it's dry. And yes, the shimmer does go into the items. And now I'll just... Oh, that really darkened up the very edge. Okay. That might look kind of cool, actually, when it's done. Okay, I want to do my other seam binding for sure. I'm going to do it in, what color? Let's try this one. This is the Dusty Concord. And it's quite a bit darker. I used up all my purple seam binding. Now this one has a little white or a pinkish spot on it. Ended up going into my dye when I was dyeing the other day. Trying not to make this video too long. Oh, spray a bit down here. And let's absorb all that up. And then work it in a little bit. I think I prefer this color, so let's put some of this on there. Some water. You could easily dip your stuff as well and then like dip it in water. Let's get the stuff on the sides. And then we can work that in. And then I kind of work it in some more. I think I'm going to need to do it one more time to get something a little darker. Not really darker, but a little brighter. Oops. A little bit of water. I'm just wanting to do like one piece or something. I will just use my little grid mat thingy, a little plastic thing that goes on my desk. There we go. And that little piece on the end really shows up. That's okay, because I'll cut that off and I'll use it. Not quite as dark as I wanted. Let's try it one more time. I'm going to take a chance. And I'm going to do this off of camera because I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold it quite far away and squirt it. Because I just want some little dots in there like that. And now I'll kind of squish it. Then they won't be quite so dots. I just realized that my fan is on. So I hope it's not too noisy. Okay, so now we've got kind of a bit of spots, which is not too bad. And they'll kind of fade in a little more as it dries. So let's put that up there. Now I think I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to come back when these are dry and I'm going to show you the finished result. So stay tuned. Okay, so all the goodies are dry. Now, I did all the orange stuff off of camera before, but just that looks so good. I think that looks wonderful with the variegation. This was done with Distress Inks. Love, love, love the color on that. These here, I think this was done with a Distress Ink, and these two were done with alcohol inks. So quite a difference in the intensity of the color. And I think I did these with the alcohol inks. But love how they all turned out. Like this one here was quite brown. Not sure what I done that with. But then we get purple, 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 lots of purple, and kind of a pink. I know these were done with the alcohol inks. So the alcohol ink, this was alcohol ink too. So this must have been something else with the alcohol inks. But the alcohol ink, you get a very intense color. Very, very intense color. But that is Beautiful. And then some of this was actually done with shimmer mist because I can see the shimmer in there. Not sure if you can see it, but very beautiful purple. And this one, some of them I'm not really sure what I dyed them with. This was definitely shimmer mist because I can really see the shimmer on there. And it turned out quite dark, darker than I'd actually want, but this I think I did with ink, a little bit of the alcohol ink, probably because it was like sitting on top of this, but beautiful light purple. Love these ones. This one here was a shimmer mist as well because I can see the shimmer on it. But yeah, I mean, they all work good. This was definitely shimmer mist. It's a beautiful shade of purples. That turned out really nice. But you did see me do a lot of this on video, so you could go back and see how I actually got some of the colors. This was definitely, I think this was like a wipe up thing from the alcohol inks. But beautiful colors. Beautiful, beautiful. Now these I remembered. I think I did these three off camera. But I put alcohol ink in the middle. And then I did, what did I do on the other? Can't remember now, but I know it was alcohol ink in the middle. I think the outside might have been some of the distress ink. But those turned out kind of cool with the darker centers. And then we have all of our trims. This was just some odds and ends from the edge of a doily. We got this here. Now I did this with the ink, but then I did something else and it darkened up the edge just a tiny little bit. This was definitely the alcohol ink. We've got some lace. And then this is kind of a variegated. It's still got some of the white. This lace. Love this lace. I do. This was done with shimmer mist. And I can see the shimmer on there. And then we've got this piece which we did the distress ink, and then I think I dropped just a little bit of the alcohol ink on this, if I remember right. And this was done with the alcohol ink, or not, distress inks. And I might have dropped some alcohol ink on there to get those darker spots. This is quite pink, but it's kind of, I would put that into a pink pile, but it's just got that little bit of a mauvey type color. But for the most part, I would call that pink. This we definitely did with the alcohol inks, and it's a very deep pink, but again, it's got that purplish, and then it's got bits of purple because I believe I dropped some alcohol ink on top of it. And this actually turned out really, really nice. It's going to be really nice and variegated like that. And I found that with the eyelash trim, sometimes you get the fibers that they stick together. All you got to do is just run your finger down it like that, and it breaks it all up. If it happens to. It doesn't always do that. I find this stuff here kind of not knots up, but you get little, like that little bit there is kind of stuck together on the tip. So you just run your finger over it and it smartens right up. So now I can add all of this to all the other stuff that I did using the fabric dyes. Oh, we got this here too. We got this piece, which is kind of blotchy, which is nice. I like it because then it's not just one solid color. We've got this here, which I dyed, beautiful shade of light purple on that. And then this one we dyed, and then I just dropped some alcohol ink on the top of it. And that kind of created the little blotches, which I really, really like. So we got lots of purple goodies, which is nice, being that purple is my favorite color. And then we got the few things of orange. I'm going to do more orange seam binding. And when I only need to do one or two things, I will just use the Distress ink because it's so quick and easy. If I had to pick something to dye with, I would pick the Distress inks. The color is really nice, and it's, for the most part, it's pretty accurate to what the color of the ink is. But when you're doing it with the pad and putting a little bit down, and it takes a lot more work. But if a person had like the refills for it or something that you could just put a few drops into a little bit of water, I think would work really, really good. So I'm going to work on buying some of the refills to use, or buying some, I don't know how the Distress paints work because I don't own any of them, or I do, but none of the colors that I really want. But all in all, love how everything turned out. You can even see, I was just noticing in this cheesecloth, you can see the shimmer in there from using shimmer mist on this. But this wasn't quite as orange as I wanted, but it's still good because it'll go good, I think, with orange. But I might add a little bit of orange in here. Just, I'll do some up on my little plastic sheet thing, and then just dip some of these whiter spots into it to get a little more orange in there. We'll see. I don't mind that color at all. But that's it. That's all for the dyeing of fabrics, or not so much fabrics, fibers, lace, trims, etc. Hope you enjoyed this little mini series. There is 3 videos total for this, so check them all out. I can see the shimmer on my hands from handling this stuff. So that's kind of nice. But that's it. That's all the fun I've had with dyeing. And check out the other videos. Check out the links below. Thanks for subscribing, liking, sharing, all that stuff. And we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.